Hey everyone, this is Jono from Veracity with another video in my video series. This one on assessment/quiz learner response format. So I will note that I just started a series on CMI interactions, which are really a way in xAPI to track data about a learner or student's interaction with questions on a quiz, true or false questions, multiple choice questions, etc. So if you're coming into this video and you haven't seen the last video sets up some important context, so you might want to check out that one as well. Also note, this will not be the last video in this series. I'm trying to keep this part pretty short as far as the weekly videos go, and there's quite a lot to cover on this topic. So here's where we're at. We've done the overview of the CMI interactions last time, and now we are doing the different CMI interaction types and the appropriate response formats that go along with that. So bear with me if that doesn't make sense yet. It should here in a little bit. All right. So we covered this last time, but this is an example of an object in an xAPI statement where, let me get my highlighter out. There we go. Where we've got, some ID. This is the thing that's being interacted with, and then we've got this definition of what it is. This is kind of like metadata about this particular activity. And here we've got a name. What is the name of the thing? What is the description of the thing? And we mentioned last time how this type is very important. This type tells us that it is a CMI interaction, that it is some sort of question that the student is going to interact with. We're going to introduce one more thing. Let me go back to my highlighter. When you have things that are of type CMI interaction here, you should or shall have another attribute. Notice we've got a comma here at the end. We say it's a CMI interaction, and now we have this new thing called interaction type, and in this case it's set to true false. So essentially what this is telling us is, okay, this overall object, we know that it is a CMI interaction. We see that right here on this line that I didn't mean to cross out, I meant to highlight. So we know it's an interaction, but we don't know that much about it. We don't know what kind of interaction. So this additional attribute tells us a little bit more detail, in this case, that it is a true-false question that is being interacted with. So what are the different types of interactions? We've got true-false, choice or multiple choice, fill-in, long fill-in, Likert, matching, performance, sequencing, numeric, and other. If these sound familiar to you and you have experience with SCORM, just like some of the concepts I was talking about in the last video, these things were really copied over from the SCORM. It's the same type of model in CMI interactions, so the same types were kept. So what is important to understand is that, let me highlight again, when you set one of these interaction types, when you set this, so my object's a CMI interaction and it has interaction type true-false. Well then, when you're tracking data from your learner about a true-false question, the data that you say, their answer, changes. So for example, if it is a true-false question, the answer for the learner has to be either true or false. Where if it's multiple choice, it'll be one of the choices. If it's a fill-in or long fill-in, it's going to be some text, and so on. We'll get into these things. And there's a proper way to represent every one of these formats, but essentially the trigger for the format is the interaction type. When you pick one of these interaction types, then there is an acceptable pattern that goes along with it for your learner response. So note here, we're talking about learner response today. We might not get through all of these because of time, but we're going to go through each one of these and talk about what learner responses look like. But also what we will cover in future videos is, in some cases, you can have a specific format for the learner response, but we can also let the system know what all the valid choices were and then what the correct choice was. So you can imagine when you're doing, some analytics like a test item analysis, not only knowing what your learner answered, but knowing that there were 4 choices, these are what the choices were, and choice C was the correct choice, allows you to do a lot more with the visualizations. So anyway, we're going to focus on that later. Today is on the learner response. If I pick a true-false interaction type, what does my learner response have to look like when I'm tracking data for the learner? So what do we mean by learner response? Kind of highlighted that a bunch the last time. We're specifically talking about the part of an xAPI statement, result.response. And this is what it looks like for real in a statement. There's a result top level item. It has a sub-object. There's more than just response in it, but for now we're just going to cover response. And in this case, just kind of continuing the example from the last slide, the answer, so the student answered true, is essentially what we're saying here. So you can pretty much figure out that this was very likely a true-false question, even though we don't have those details in here. So when we say learner response, we're actually referring to result.response in the xAPI statement. All right, so let's go through a couple of these. I see we're at like 6 minutes already, so maybe I'm just going to do 2, and then we'll continue with the other formats in the next video. So let's start with true-false. So in this case, our interaction type attribute, the new one that we added that we showed you there at the beginning of this video, is set to this string, true-false. So that tells us that this is a true-false question. So in the xAPI specification, I'll put links to all this stuff in the description, but all this is defined by the xAPI specification. The value when you are tracking the learner's response can either be the string true or the string false. Those are the only 2 acceptable values, not T, not F, not capital T true, not 0 or 1. True or false are the only acceptable answers for a true or false question. And here's what it looks like when you actually submit it. So this is the user, kind of like in our last slide, answering true on a true-false question. We've tracked their data, and we've said they've answered true. Pretty simple when it comes to a true-false question. Let's go on to multiple choice, because it is a bit more complicated. All right, so in this case, let me grab my highlighter again. There we go. We want a multiple choice question, so our interaction type is choice. So it's not multiple choice, it's just the word choice to identify a multiple choice question. Again, from the xAPI spec, the value is a list of item IDs delimited by this special character right here. If the response only contains 1 item, you can't have that delimiter. Again, that little series of characters, I called it characters, 3 characters, must not be used. So, for example, if you have a multiple choice question and it says, I don't know, what color is a stop sign? And there's a bunch of choices and one of the choices is red. The user picks red. This is what their response would look like. If they pick green, it would probably say green here. But these are a list of item IDs delimited by this. We'll show you the delimiter in a minute. So red is really an ID for our choice that was red. So anyway, this is basically saying, again, our user picked the choice red in the multiple choice question. What's this delimiter thing about, right? Let me take a look. All right. Again, we are dealing with a multiple choice question, still interaction choice type, same definition, but notice here we have red and then that delimiter, white, that delimiter, and blue. So what you can imagine in this case, let's go with a simple question. Pick from the choices below the colors of the US flag. So in this case, the learner checked the red item, then there's a delimiter. They also checked the white item, then there's the delimiter, and they checked the blue item. So that delimiter is used when there's more than one item. The first time we just had the red, so we didn't need the delimiter. Now we have them picking 3 items. So the 3 items they picked were red, white, and blue, and we know there are 3 different things because they are delimited by these 3 characters. Okay, so let me turn off that highlighter. We have several other formats to go through, but I want to keep these relatively short. So we'll actually do part 2 of the learner response format to CMI interaction activities in next week's video. It looks like we're already about to hit 10 minutes, so this one was getting pretty long. All right, if you like this video, please click that thumbs up button or subscribe. Thanks for watching and have a good one.